UGD coming at you with a firearm bill of sale. Yeah, firearm bill of sale. Guys, that's a little thing, but as my daddy said, little things make the big thing happen. Hey, this is a disclaimer right up front. This is for Kansas. Yeah, Kansas. This is with the process that I go through. It may not work in your state. You need to check your local and state laws. I know in Washington, my wife is from Washington. We spend a lot of time up in the state of Washington. Love it. But apparently individuals need to go to an FFL and have a background check done on the buyer. Yeah, even on private transactions. I don't know what they do in the state of California because, frankly, I don't like leaving the country. So this is the disclaimer. You've got it in front of you. So use this information wisely. What is a firearm bill of sale? Well, a firearm bill of sale is a legal document that records the transfer of ownership of an asset to a second party in exchange for money or trade. Yeah, money or trade. There might be a little bartering in there, or as I call it, horse trading. The bill of sale, as a rule, is drafted by the seller and includes the details of the transaction. It protects both the buyer and the seller should disagreements arise in the future. Now, the question you might be asking yourself, hey, do I need a bill of sale for a firearm? Well, yeah, I think everybody should have them. Now, in Kansas, I'm not legally required to compose a firearm bill of sale when selling a gun. However, I do this to protect myself. A firearm bill of sale provides written proof of a few things. One, that the transaction actually occurred, meaning the seller can't claim theft or the buyer can't claim down the road, hey, I never received that firearm. When I sell a firearm, it truly belongs to the seller and it's not stolen. So if the police come and knock on my door down the road and say, hey, what are you doing with that stolen firearm? I say, no. You need to go talk to Billy Bob. This is when he sold it to me. It proves the seller's intent to transfer ownership to the purchaser. So if you're dealing with your wife's cousin and he comes back and says, no, I was just lending him that firearm, you can say, hey, Billy Bob, got a bill of sale here. Details of the gun being transferred. This is very important. Every gun's unique, guys. It's like a fingerprint. It's manufacturer, model, serial number, caliber. When the police are hunting for a firearm, they don't just say, hey, we're looking for a Glock. Yeah, no, they're looking for a Glock 17 with the serial number and 9mm. It also tells the buyer that I'm not making any promises or assurances to the condition of this firearm. It's being sold as is, fella, and we'll touch base on that here in a few minutes. In short, this document is going to protect you from liability, fraud down the road, whether you are the seller or the buyer. It proves when you had ownership of the firearm, guys. That is so important. It gives the dates of when that gun was in your possession, in your control. That's going to be important if down the road, God forbid, that firearm is used in the commission of a crime. And to give you a story of my experiences with the ATF. Yeah, the ATF. Years ago, I was a sales rep for a Class 3 law enforcement only dealer in Wichita, Kansas. And we sold 99% of our firearms to law enforcement agencies, but every once in a while we sold to individuals. Typically, they were going to be police officers or firemen. One day the ATF gave me a call, said, hey, we are tracking a firearm. We've got a Glock that was used in a crime that originated from you. And we would like to have the information of who you sold that to. Please. Yeah, they said please. And they even told me I was under no obligation to give them that information. But they would like to have a copy of the 4473, which is, of course, the form that you fill out when you buy a firearm. Now, being new to it and understanding it wasn't my obligation to do it, I said, I'll be honest with you. I'm not the guy that can make that call. I'm going to have to talk to my boss. And told the ATF agent to give me a number. I'll call him back. So I went and talked to my boss. He said, absolutely, share the information because we want to be on the right side of the ATF. Called the ATF back. They told them that, yeah, we would like to provide that information. How would you like it? And they asked for it to be faxed. So that's my story of the ATF and dealing with them. I know the ATF probably has a reputation with a lot of people that's pretty negative, but my one experience with the ATF is pretty positive. So what you've seen on the screen is essentially the bill of sale that I use. This is one that I've cobbled together from some internet resources. This is something that I make 2 copies of, staple them together. I fill out 2 copies, give one to the buyer, and I keep one for myself for my record. Now, the first part of this is pretty much falling in line to the 4473 and asking those specific questions of a buyer about them. Have you ever been convicted in any court of a crime punishable by imprisonment, fugitive, addicted to any drugs, lawful to be in the United States, so on and so forth? Yeah, they can lie on this, and they can lie on a 4473. But what this does is this sets the tone of the transaction. This lets that cat know I'm serious about what we're doing here. It also kind of lets them know that if anything comes up, any malfeasance in regard to this firearm, when the police knock on my door, I'm going to be overly cooperative. In fact, I'll jump in the back of the car to identify you when they arrest you. So this sets the tone of the transaction and lets them know that it's serious. I make them sign this section specifically. So again, setting the tone. The next section we got here is the make, model, caliber, serial number, and the cost of the firearm. Yeah, every firearm's unique, guys. It is a fingerprint. Like I said earlier, when the cops are out looking for a Glock, they're not just looking for a Glock. They're going to have a lot of information about it. This memorializes the weapon that was being sold. That shows this was a financial transaction or trade. Very important, guys. Next section, I understand the firearm is sold as is and no warranty has been applied or given. This firearm should be inspected by a competent gunsmith prior to using. The seller is not responsible for any damages occurred or caused by the use of this firearm. I want them to read that and date this, because let's be honest with you guys, Billy Bob might have his cousin get all liquored up and do some hand loads for him, and he's going to double charge every one of those things to make sure they're hot. And that's not my responsibility. Once you own that gun, it is all yours and you're responsible for it. Now, the last part here is the buyer and seller information. As I've talked before, when I sell a firearm through Arms List, I'm going to get some information from that buyer before we meet. We're going to have an email exchange. I'm going to get a phone number. I'm going to find out where they live. I'm going to sit down on the old Googly, and I'm going to find out as much as I can about that guy. On the video I posted about doing Arms List transactions, I talk a little bit about how to do a little bit of research on it. So if you haven't seen that video, jump on that one. Talks a little bit about how you can do a little bit of background check before you meet that person. And I want to know the city and state they live in, and I want their signature. Now, at this point, they better produce an ID. Yeah, I need to see an ID, because fellas, it is absolutely illegal to sell a firearm to somebody out of state. That's right. You need to see a driver's license or ID from your state. That is a non-negotiable, guys. It is absolutely illegal. Put you in jail for up to 10 years. If they produce me an Oklahoma ID and say, hey, I just moved here, he's like, deal's off, fella. Can't do it. Not going to do it. Guys, we got to protect ourselves, because God forbid, at any point, we're accountable for these things. And then the last thing that is really important when filling this out, this is a little thing, guys. And again, my dad, little things make the big thing happen. Use a blue ink pen. Yeah, got to use a blue ink pen, because they can make photocopies, they can doctor, they can do a lot of things with that. But if there's blue ink there, it's going to make things a lot more difficult for them to try to change and forge a document. So make sure you're using a blue ink pen when you're filling these out. Guys, we have a responsibility to sell our firearms in a safe and reasonable manner. At any point during this transaction, if this person gets waspy with signing anything about they've never been convicted of or doing drugs, walk away. At any point, if they say, well, I don't have an ID, I left it at home, walk away. Hey, I just moved here from Oklahoma, walk away. This is no guarantee that the person's not a wackadoodle, but it does do our due diligence and can demonstrate down the road that, God forbid, this firearm was used in a crime of when you had the ownership of the firearm. It is very important for you to demonstrate the time frame you own that firearm and who you sold it to. So this is UGD coming at you with the Firearm Bill of Sale. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you think, boy, he ought to not be a lawyer, hit the thumbs down, and please subscribe.